안녕하세요 여러분. 오늘은 나일과 함께 AMA 시간을 가지게 되었습니다. 오늘 AMA에도 많은 관심과 참여 부탁드립니다. 오늘 AMA 보상은 당첨자들에게 지급될 예정이고요. AMA 이후에 텔레그램을 통해 안내드리도록 하겠습니다. 안녕하세요. 불개미 커뮤니티 유저들에게 자기소개와 나일 커뮤니티에 대해서 소개 부탁드립니다.
For sure. So, my name is Trantor, and I work with Nile Exchange, which is the leading decentralized exchange on Linea. And it's my absolute honor to be here today with you guys and to talk through our exchange and how we've sought to solve really what's called the DEX Trilemma, or the DEX, big problem, I guess, and our move to become the MetaDEX, and that is the sort of MetaDEX in particular for the Linea and consensus ecosystem. So I'll explain that in a little while, but great to be here, and also great to have an interview at a normal hour instead of 2 o'clock in the morning, which is what happens oh so frequently when we're speaking with people in the US. So fantastic for me as I'm down in Australia. But thanks again for having me.
Thank you for kind introduction. 네, 제가 잠깐 간략하게 소개를 드리면 나일은 고빈도 리퀴디티 프로바이더와 레이어 2 비용 구조에 최적화된 집중 유동성 프로젝트입니다. 집중 유동성 프로젝트란 무엇이냐? 좁은 구간에 효과적으로 유동성을 공급하는 프로젝트인데요. 가장 효과적인 유동성 공급자를 유치하도록 설계된 초고효율 유동성 레이어라고 생각하시면 되겠습니다. 간단하게 알아봤으니까 지금부터 질문하고 답변 살짝 받아보는 시간 가지도록 하겠습니다. Okay, can you move question section?
Yeah, sure. Let's go through some questions.
Okay, question first. How is the reward structure of the Nile project and the incentive for liquidity providers designed, and how does it ensure sustainability?
Excellent. Okay, so quite a big question. And if it's okay, what I might do is just quickly describe what we call the DEX Trilemma and how meta DEXs came around. And then I can quickly jump into sustainability. So excuse me while I just reply to this for about probably 2 or 3 minutes. But just to basically break it down, the history of decentralized exchanges really starts in particular with effective ones with Uniswap. Uniswap did a great job of ensuring that those who wanted to provide LP and those who wanted to trade could get the best possible opportunities to collect fees if you were an LP provider and to get seamless trades as a trader. The next step to that was SushiSwap, who worked out that you could provide essentially the same model, but then also admit an additional token on top of that, which provided even more. So in other words, as an LP provider, you could get fees, but you could also get this additional token. So what happened with that is a whole bunch of LP providers moved over to SushiSwap, huge numbers in fact, who went across to start farming there instead. But as they did this, they started to sell those sushi tokens because the sushi token didn't have sufficient utility. And so what happened was, in this trilemma we talk about, where you've got LPs on one side, you've got traders who want good trade execution, and then you've got the token holders. The token holders were really left holding the bag, and there wasn't a whole lot of value. The next step to that really sort of sought to improve upon it was the curve model. And so for many people here, curve is something quite famous, in particular for DeFi throughout 2020 and 2021. And what they sought to do was enable a locking mechanism with VECRV, so vote escrowed curve. And what could happen there is each week or fortnight, and I can't remember the length of the epochs, I'm pretty sure it was a week, you would vote on specific pools, and that's where the emissions would primarily go. And then you would get, for that purpose, you would get about 50%, I think it was, of the fees generated by that pool, or generated by all the pools, I should say, that are then spread to all the VECRV holders. What the problem there was, of course, that once again, they weren't getting enough of the fees as a token holder. And more importantly, pools that weren't particularly valuable to the ecosystem were getting far too many rewards, meaning that there wasn't enough incentive for individuals to vote towards productive pools, i.e. those pools that really made Curve move forward and sort of become big. Now, to the next step is, I think, the MetaDEX model, which I think many here are familiar with, and that is for those who are quite familiar with the Velodrome or Aerodrome model, because I know those are quite famous, and the relationship they have with Coinbase. What they've managed to do, and in particular, all the MetaDEXs, and i.e. us in particular, as very good friends of theirs as well, is create a sustainable model where the vote escrowed Nile, so that is those who own the token and lock it, actually receive the perfect sort of mix, because they vote on pools and receive all of the fees that they personally vote on. So in other words, voters, those who lock the Nile with their token, they're incentivized to vote on the most productive pools or those that provide the greatest incentives, i.e. things that are net benefit to the ecosystem. The LP itself receives all of the emissions, so the emissions that are voted towards their pool. And those who are putting in the LP are then incentivized to try to provide the best possible liquidity, i.e. that is the tightest liquidity in their liquidity pool, in order to make sure that they get the best chunk of those emissions, i.e. they get the best returns. From there, traders are also highly beneficial, or receive a lot of benefits, I should say, because those who provide the most effective liquidity are the ones most rewarded, and thus there's more and more liquidity keeps putting put in right into the area that makes it the most efficient for traders. So what you end up with is the lowest possible slippage, highest fee generation, and a highly sustainable token model. So that's really what Nile Exchange is doing in our deep partnership now with Consensus. And we're just at the beginning of that partnership as we continue to move forward. And that's really the sort of key. Now, to get to the questions, I know that talks about incentives just there, but the question talked about sustainability. And I'll just quickly touch on a couple of points for sustainability. Firstly, the VE33 model, there's a lot of different DEXs out there, and none of them have solved this problem to the same level that Nile, as part of the broader Kingdom set of projects, has managed to achieve. And that's because our focus has been throughout on making sure we have excellent trade volume and fees. And as such, we have one of the lowest emission schedules of any of the VE33. In other words, we're not seeking to inflate our token to death. We're doing our absolute most to make sure that we achieve growth, but we also, most importantly, protect those who have vote escrowed, i.e. locked their Nile tokens to vote on specific pools. So in terms of sustainability, the first check is, yes, we have one of the lowest emission schedules out. The second point is, and this is a key part of the VE33 model, there is an ongoing rebase mechanism. So for those who are locked into the VE Nile, they receive additional VE Nile every week in terms of a rebase, which once again protects them from dilution. So that provides that sustainability, but also provides that long-term understanding and long-term alignment with those who are not only LP providers, but most importantly, token holders and those who lock into their vote escrowed Nile position. So I'm hoping that answers the question pretty well. Happy to take question 2 if you're ready.
Thank you for your detailed answer. I think some of the answers to the second question just already came out. Yeah.
For sure, yeah. Let's go to question 2.
Okay, let's move question 2. What is the concept of the concentrate liquidity, and how does it differ from more traditional liquidity pools?
Sure. So the big innovation from, and this was a Uniswap innovation, was Uniswap v3, which is their concentrated liquidity pools. And what that does is the change up is from the old pools, which essentially meant you would put in an equal amount in dollar value or ETH value of 2 particular tokens, let's say FireAnt token and Trantor token. You would put those in. And because we've got the same amount in there, it essentially allows trades from 0 value all the way up to infinity value. So the liquidity is sort of spread evenly across a large area. It means that only a small percentage of the actual liquidity is available for trading at any one time, i.e. there isn't that much depth at the current price. So in other words, there'll be a lot of slippage. Now to explain that a little bit more, if there's a pool that's only got 1 million FireAnt tokens and 1 million Trantor tokens, dollar value in there, but somebody comes in and wants to trade $200,000 or $300,000 into FireAnt token from whatever other tokens, let's say it was mine or whatever, they'll receive a lot of slippage and have a lot of price movement on that particular purchase because there isn't that much liquidity at the current price level. What happens with concentrated liquidity is that significant liquidity is then provided around the current price levels because those who provide the LP are incentivized to do so. What this means is you end up getting liquidity pools that are between 10 and 100 times more efficient at executing trades and providing lowest possible slippage to traders than you do with a standard VAMM. So a standard sort of legacy pool you would see with the old Uniswap v2. So for concentrated liquidity, the key is how do you put as much of your liquidity around the current price in order to make sure you provide that best possible set of trade options. And so if you think back to my last question on that question 1 where I talked about the sort of the trilemma and what the MetaDex does, this is an example with concentrated liquidity of LP providers being incentivized to provide tight liquidity because they want to get the most rewards And because we have the most rewards going to the tightest liquidity, we get the most traders. And then the most traders end up using us, thereby giving more fees. And you can see how this flywheel goes around and around. So that's kind of the benefit of using concentrated liquidity. For clarity, we also have legacy pools because that suits some partners better. In particular, some partners with very volatile sort of meme coins, etc. They often prefer a legacy pool, but we have both the concentrated liquidity pools and the legacy pools. So there you go. That answers the question on concentrated liquidity.
Yeah, thank you for your detailed answer. Yeah, let's move question 3. What are the possible risks of the centralized liquidity pool, and how does Nile build manage them?
Look, there's no doubt. If you're seeking to provide a huge amount of liquidity right on the current price, you become vulnerable to price swings. And your vulnerability is expressed in terms of your impermanent loss. So if you want to look up impermanent loss, that can give you a little bit more of an explanation of what the story is. But the summary there is, if the price moves up in a positive or a negative direction, but mostly a positive direction on one of your tokens, you will have provided all the liquidity up into a certain price point, at which point you might be all the way back into USDC, and you'll start missing out on the rest of the gains that are happening from ETH. The other risk there, that was an example of USDC ETH pool, for example. The other risk is if you are not updating your positions, i.e. if you put too much concentrated liquidity in a certain range or bracket, you might find that you are out of range completely and are no longer receiving any fees. So I guess the risk there is, it's the higher the risk that you want to take personally, the higher the reward, because you'll have more and more fees coming through your pool. But the wider you put your position, although you're less likely to receive no rewards, you are more likely to receive far less than someone who goes up the risk curve to provide a more concentrated position. So the summary there is the risks are really around impermanent loss and how you can manage them, and then being outside of range and no longer receiving emissions. I will just highlight there are a number of protocols out there now that do what's called automated liquidity management, so ALMs. Now for ALMs, we have a number of partners who do that for you. And what they'll do is they'll automatically adjust the positions for you so that you still remain within the bracket. Those positions are still subject to impermanent loss because they still have to buy and sell to rebalance your position for you, but at least you don't have to do it yourself. And in particular, as you start to have more positive price action, and if you're getting significant emissions, the emissions can often cover that IL for you anyway. And so some examples of protocols like that, T-House, they're a good partner of ours, as is GammaSwap, and then Itchy does some interesting pools as well, all of which you can see on the Nile front end if you're interested in using an ALM. So hopefully that answers question 3 on concentrated liquidity risks.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. Let's move to question number 4.
Yep.
Yeah. Question number 4, like roadmap. What is the future roadmap and plan feature update for Nile?
Perfect. So I guess there's some stuff I can say and some stuff I can't say, obviously, for a variety of, not insider, it's not the right word, business reasons. But I would say this. Nile has recently, and this is all announced, you can see it on X and on a few other places or Twitter, Consensus, i.e. the largest software company around, Consensus made an initial investment into Nile and have made it clear that we are their partner decentralized exchange of choice. So what that really means is they are now locking their Nile and voting themselves on the most productive pairs. Linea, as I'm sure many of you are tracking, also have a very large TGE, so a token generation event coming up for their Linea token. And I don't want to talk to expectations on valuations, but they are a very big company and a very big group, and they'll be looking to push that out too. So I'll leave the rest of it up to your, I suppose, imagination. There is plenty going on the Linea ecosystem, and the Nile decentralized exchange will be there with Linea the whole way as the leading DEX. And if you're looking at, I guess, similar examples of how these partnerships work, I think you could quite comfortably look at Airdrop and Base on the Base network and see something quite similar to what we think is likely roadmap for us. So I think that probably answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. This is just my individual question.
Sure.
Do you think can Linea token airdrop go ahead in Nile ecosystem?
100%, yeah. So The Linea
100%. Okay.
No. What I mean is the Linea TGE. So the way that'll go, our decentralized exchange, as the partner DEX, is likely to host significant amounts of Linea token liquidity, and it's up to Linea on how they choose to use the rest of their tokens. But what I'm getting at there is, because we are in key partnership with Linea, we're very much expecting to support Linea's TGE, of course, as good ecosystem participants. Does that answer that question properly, or do you have more follow-up question?
Oh, that's fine. Let's move next question.
Sure.
Yeah, this question is to our AMA last question. Yeah, Nile said that he inherited the exclusive concentrated liquidity V2 3,3 implementation. But what are the biggest benefit for liquidity providers and token holders through the concentrated liquidity and V3,3 model provided by Nile, and what are the implications of this system for DeFi's future? This question for a long-term vision. Yeah.
Okay. So I think what's the best way to say it, because I always sound very bullish on Nile because I am a hyperbull myself. Sorry, you should be careful because I'm a big believer. But what I'll say is the V33 model is perfect for Linea because the individual voters, that is those who have the Nile token, are locked for 4 years. So everybody who locks and gets involved in our voting system is automatically going to be a long-term user of Linea because there's automatically going to be rewards and things and active participation they need to be in. In other words, what I'm saying there is, by the very definition of our model, because it's 4 years, you've got all of our users as now hyper-loyal individuals who will likely stay with Linea in this position and continue to build with them and continue to engage in DeFi. In the next little while, we'll also start to see far more opportunities for lending and borrowing with some bigger partners coming into Linea. And that'll mean, once again, you've got additional opportunities for those who are seeking leverage or those seeking to borrow against their positions and provide LP. And you'll see a lot more looping strategies coming out in the next little while as well. Finally, the Linea ecosystem benefits significantly from the partnership and the fact that it's a part of Consensus. Consensus's size is so large in its influence. You will also notice there's a recent announcement for the MetaMask debit card, which is currently in pilot mode in the US and has been rolled out in some other jurisdictions around the world. This card enables people to use, and I'm not the best to speak to it, you need to speak to Linea, but enables people to start using their crypto in particular to pay for everyday items. Now, I know we've heard that before, but if anyone can do it and build this kind of thing out, MetaMask in particular is the kind of brand that is seeking to build this out and has the power to do it with their partnership with MasterCard. So let's highlight again, so a partnership with MasterCard. So what I guess to answer this question a little bit more clearly, I see a very bright future for Linea in particular. And for Nile as the DEX who supports them, I think we're very well placed to support them in the best possible ways in terms of our token holders providing returns that have a sustainable price, a sustainable model, and it means for LP providers, they are more likely to come across to Nile and see the opportunity to place their LPs somewhere where they don't have to be mercenary. And so I'll repeat that part one last time because I know a lot of your listeners are interested in providing LP on specific pairs. If you come to Nile and you're working on Linea, you do not need to be mercenary. You have the opportunity to deposit your LP, earn your Nile tokens, lock those Nile tokens, and then vote on whatever pools you want to build out a position with the knowledge that you're in a ecosystem, as in the Nile and Consensus ecosystem, that likely has a very bright future. So I think that's probably as much as I can say, because I don't want to make promises about price or anything like that. I can't do any of those things, but I can say that, I think there's a lot of positive impetus and a lot of positive names behind what is going on right now. So again, I think that's quite a big opportunity, and in particular, a big opportunity for DeFi as it moves into the Linea ecosystem. So I think that answers it. Do you have any other follow-up questions on that one, Farhan?
No, our AMA is almost done. Yeah. 이것으로 오늘 AMA를 모두 마치도록 하겠습니다. 이제 마지막으로 트렌터님께 마지막 인사 한번 듣고 그리고 하고 싶은 말이 있는데 여쭤보고 마무리하도록 하겠습니다. Yeah, well, AMA is almost done. Can you leave a last word for Korean community?
Sure. So for the Korean community, please come on over. You can do a couple of things. You can go straight to kingdom.one, which is our universal landing page. But more importantly, go across to nile.build and you can see the actual exchange itself. It's a wonderful user experience. And if you have any issues or concerns, always feel free to jump into Discord. If your English isn't strong, it doesn't matter. We have a Korean channel and people can help you out there as well. And if you're happy to speak English, of course, you can speak with me or anybody else who's there. You'll find the team is very responsive and we always seek to support anyone in our community with whatever they're doing. I'll leave you with one last piece. I know when I'm talking, I get very excited. I get animated when I talk about the Nile and the Nile exchange. And that kind of energy is what the community has, and it's the kind of community and energy that we see across Linea at the moment, because people are excited about the future. And I know there's a lot of turbulence in crypto, and that's the way things are supposed to be. But the Nile exchange offers, once again, a couple of key things. All fees go to the voters. All incentives go to the voters. And if you're providing LP, you'll receive emissions in conjunction with, in particular, how effective your LP is. You can take from a wide variety of different LP options. And then for traders, you'll get the lowest possible slippage when you come through and trade on Linea with the Nile exchange in particular. And we also provide a number of different aggregators to ensure you always get that best possible trade experience. So hopefully that answers everything, and I'm hoping your community, if they have any issues, please come on over and ask us anything you need, and we can help out.
Yeah. Thank you, Trader. See you again. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.